Hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to the architecture of Deus Ex Mankind Divided. So today, in this video, we are going to look at the Utulek, colloquially known as Golem City. So what is Utulek? Well, right away we can see that we are in a rather distressed alleyway. We have a lot of makeshift construction, like we have like a sheet metal there and like wires everywhere. That's not up to code. that's not technically legal. It doesn't do bad electrical work. We have like a burst pipe here. It's just pouring water down. That's not good. You don't want that happening in your house. So it looks like a pretty rough neighborhood. So, in the story of the game, what's happening here is that the Czech Republic didn't trust augmented people to live in their cities anymore because of the aug incident, right? Remember how at one point all the augs went crazy because they had a virus in their head and so they just kind of fried the electronics and so they all went crazy. And because of that, everyone started suspecting all their augs. Oh, what if they go crazy again? What if they start killing people again? And so the Czech Republic decided to move all the augs out of their cities. And so what they did is they built the Utulek. They built this. There's a lot more to this. We'll see a lot more later. But they built you can kind of see up there actually. So it's a pretty big, tall pile of boxes where they just kind of shifted all the augs into the Utulek and out of their cities. They were shipped here against their will and they're not allowed to leave. So the people, once they're here, they're not allowed to leave. So in the game, they call this place a ghetto, right? It's an aug ghetto. What is a ghetto if you're not too familiar with the specific definition of the term? A ghetto is, historically, it's a part of the city where the people you are discriminating against, you put them into the ghetto and you don't allow them to live anywhere else. Historically in Europe there were Jewish ghettos because anti-Semitism. And so Jews were allowed to live in certain parts of the city and they weren't allowed to live elsewhere. They were also allowed to do certain jobs but not other jobs. And so like there were restrictions on Jews on where they can live, where they can go, where they can work. So you're not allowed to leave the ghetto, or at least you're not allowed to live anywhere outside the ghetto. But inside the ghetto, they were allowed to basically do what they like. They were free within the confines of the ghetto, right? There's no one telling them what to do. They're only being told that they can't leave. So that's what a ghetto is. So a ghetto is different from an internment camp or a concentration camp in the sense that an internment camp is more like a prison where you are told what to do. Like you're told where to live, what work to do, when to wake up, when to play. Like it's a proper prison. An internment camp is a proper prison, or a concentration camp is a proper prison where you are regulated heavily. So here, the people, they're not told what to do on a day-to-day basis, but they're not allowed to leave. So it's a ghetto. And given all of this makeshift construction, especially like the wires and things, the ghetto designation is probably accurate, because if you're inside an internment camp, you would not be allowed to modify the architecture like this, right? So that's what a ghetto is. Okay, let's step forward a little bit and get a slightly better look at what's going on at the Utulek. Here, already, we can see homeless people. So this woman is having a very stereotypical homeless person moment. She's got like a cardboard box there and like a rough mattress there, and she's put herself up a little shack. Not much, but at least it doesn't rain on her anymore. Not directly, at least. So the fact that there's homeless people suggests that there's not enough housing, right? Because if there's enough housing, they'd be inside the houses. So there's overcrowding. And there's overcrowding despite the fact that apparently this place is huge. Apparently this place is ginormous, but there's still overcrowding. So there's a lot of people here. So many people that they don't fit into all the dwellings, even though there's a lot of dwellings. So that's not good. Overcrowding. And let us continue to step forward. Burning?
I'm at the point where I do not even care
This is
about
odd.
food
I don't know where to
anymore.
get the wood from.
That's not
Because there's no trees anywhere nearby.
fine.
And there's a lot of wires, so you would think there's a lot of electricity.
Lost another tooth.
This might be just a stereotype, right? This is just like a... oh, homeless people burning wood in a fire, in a barrel for warmth. And like, okay, a barrel fire. I'm not sure it makes sense in the Utulek. This is not that kind of homelessness. Right.
I have to change this.
Where to get the wood from?
Are you alive? No. I just have
Alright, moving forward. Oh, there's a medic. Oh, I guess this is a medical station. Oh, I see. There are medics here. Interesting. Oh, there's a doctor here. So this doctor's trying to help people, but their medical station is just out in the open. So, they're not very well resourced.
Just passing
They're doing their best, but they're not very well resourced. Alright, so here, oh look at that. So we are in an alleyway, a narrow alleyway. It is open to the sky, but you can barely see any sky up there, and it's pretty grey, and there's a lot of wires. And then we see that there's like boxes piled up. Curious, interesting. Okay. So we can see that the Utulek is built out of these modular living units that are stacked on top of each other, and there's like metal frames. So there's like a metal framework, and then the boxes, the modules, the living modules sit in the frame. And that apparently is the entire Utulek. It's just a giant pile of modular living units, right? So let's step back a little bit and talk about modularity in architecture and prefabrication in architecture, right? So prefabrication means that instead of building everything on a building site, you fabricate large pieces of a building in a factory, and then you ship the pieces onto the site, and then you assemble the pieces on site. And there are benefits to this, right? The benefits to assembling things in a factory, or like building the things in the factory and then assembling on site. So the more time you spend in the factory, the more time you spend out of the rain, right? So when you're in the factory, it doesn't matter whether it rains or not, and you can work 24 hours a day because you're not relying on sunshine. And factories often have more specialized tools, so you might have like a big whatever machine that you need to build your stuff. And like you can't move it out of the factory, and so you kind of build the whole thing in the factory. And you might have more space in the factory. Now it might seem strange to you, like if you're building things indoors as opposed to the big buildings, like how's there more space? But the thing is, if you're building parts in the factory, you can build a lot of parts in a lot of different factories. So when you add up all the factories, there could be a lot more factory space than the actual building site. Even if the building site is huge, you could have a lot of factories, right? You could just have a lot of factories building these units in parallel, and you bring them all onto site, and you just fit them all together really quickly, right? So having like building more of the pieces off-site in factories have those advantages. No weather, you can work 24 hours a day, you can have access to equipment that you otherwise couldn't bring to site, and you can potentially have more space. But there are also disadvantages to doing this, right? The complications is that you have to design the building so that it can be assembled like this. So not everything can be made in separate pieces and put together like this. So like concrete, for example, you kind of have to mix it on site and pour it. So with concrete, what you would do is you might precast concrete elements, and then you would leave the reinforcing bars open at the end, and you would bring like a concrete wall, for example. So you precast the concrete wall, and then you kind of lift it up, and then you bring the whole pieces of the wall into place. You put the wall in place, and then you cast the rest of it. Like you cast it into the foundation, and you cast it into the columns, and you cast it into the beams. So you leave the ends open, and then you cast it in place. And so then you have like a mix of two things. You make the wall panel in the factory, and you do that because concrete, the curing process, it's better if you can control the temperature and control the moisture, right? Because like the curing, you need water, and you need, so there's like an optimum temperature. If the temperature is wrong and if the moisture is wrong, the concrete is not very strong. So in order for this concrete to be strong, you want to control the climate, and it's hard to control the climate out in the open on the building site. And so you can control how the concrete cures in the factory, and then when you've done that, then you bring the whole panel to the building site, and then you have to cast it in place. So then, like the concrete, it has to be cast into place, otherwise the concrete, like, it's not strong. You need to cast it into the floors and into beams and columns in order for the joints to be strong. So the casting into place part, you can't do that in a factory. You have to bring them onto the site and then do that on site. So some things you have to do on site, and then other things like the panel, you can make that in the factory, and it's better in the factory. So some things are better in the factory, and then some things you have to do on site. And so in a real building, there's like all of these considerations. Carpets? I'm just trying to think of like good examples of like why you can't do everything on site. Like foundations you have to do on site. Because you have to like actually build the thing in the ground, right? So you can't build the foundations off-site. Anyway, there are a number of things that you really can't do off-site, but then there are a lot of things that you can do off-site, and so then you usually in any construction project you would have a mixture of the two things, right? Okay, so prefabrication in the Utulek. So this is more advanced prefabrication than in most buildings, because here it looks like the entire structure is made out of large prefabricated units about the size of a cargo container, right? So you can imagine these things, they're small enough to fit on a truck or maybe a train, and you would like ship them to site pretty much complete. These are like complete living units, or complete apartment units that you bring to site, and then you just slot them into the steel frame. Like you put boxes on shelves, right? So like the steel frame is like a shelf, and you kind of put it in the shelf. Cool. So what this does is you really minimize the amount of work on site. You're doing as little on site as possible, and you're doing as much off site as possible. So often the finishing of the building is done on site. So the carpets, the wallpapers, the paints, even often like wiring and plumbing is often done on site. Maybe it'll come in like components, but definitely the finishing is often done on site. Here, it looks like the finishing is done in the factory, and they just kind of put it in place, and they don't do any more finishing after that. And you can see that because, well, can you see it? You can kind of, let me just climb up here and just take a close look up here. So when I say the finishing is done in the factory, there's like little gaps between these units. You can kind of see it. So these gaps like this, you really don't want little gaps inside your building, because you have cockroaches and rats and who knows what else getting stuck in the cracks. So you don't really want to leave cracks in the building. But in the Utulek, you can see that. I can't put my gun up. Oh yes, I can. Oh, well. So you can see that. We can't really see it. It's not that clear. But you can see. Look, there's a gap there. So in between the boxes, they left the gaps, and they didn't put any finishing on. They didn't put any panels on. They didn't fill the space. So it's just an empty, open gap, right? And they just didn't fill that in. So that's what I mean when I say they didn't do any finishing on site. Like they just put the box in, and that's it. They didn't do anything else. And as I said, like, you're gonna have rats in there, man. Oh, it's gonna be like your cat's gonna crawl in there and it's gonna die, and you're gonna have a dead cat inside your. Oh, that's not cool. So you don't want you don't want that to happen in your building. So that's not cool. Yeah. But the good thing about doing this though is like no on-site finishing. Well, I don't know if it's good. The good part. The advantage is that it looks like you can. Well, first of all, as I said, you absolutely minimize the amount of work you do on site, so you can get the thing built very quickly. But also, potentially, you can take it apart again because it's not sealed in place. It's not, closed up. So you can just kind of unplug these back out and take them away again, potentially. Whether or not you actually do that is you often don't unplug them again. Like it's often you just kind of leave it in place. So that's it. There's not that many. I mean, even there aren't any. There aren't any examples of this kind of construction at this scale in the real world. So a lot of this is speculative, right? So we know some things about prefabricated architecture. We know some things about stuff like this, but we don't. Like you don't usually have prefabricated living units or office units like this for long term. You often have them short term, right? Often on construction sites, you would find like the construction office is just like a prefabricated office that fits on a truck, and it's just a container that's an office inside. They just kind of put the whole container on the building site. So like you see it in building sites, it's just a prefabricated unit, just put it down. But the thing with that is, it doesn't stay there very long. It stays there at most a year, probably less than a year. Like how often does a building project last more than a few years, right? So it'll be like a few months, maybe a year. And so because it's not permanent, whatever problems there are, you know that within a year it's going to be gone. So you just don't worry about it. If you have a permanent building, then these problems become more of a problem. Because like, if you have rats in the gaps, and you just have to put up with it for a few months and then we just move the whole building. Whereas if it's permanent, then it's a permanent problem. Right? Okay. So that's prefabrication. But the next question is, why is the Utulek a slum? Because it is a slum. There's homeless people. It's distressed. There's a lot of temporary construction work. It's not in good shape. So why is it a slum? Now, people have a bad preconception about prefabricated structures, right? Right, you must say, well, because it's prefabricated, therefore the quality is bad. That's why it's a slum. That's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true that prefabricated things will fall apart. I mean, sometimes yes, sometimes it's just poorly constructed, sometimes it's just cheap. But it doesn't have to be. Like you can have like a high quality residential apartment block made up of prefabricated units. You just have to like put the time and the money into doing it properly. So there's a number of other problems in the Utulek, right? First of all, it looks like it was not designed to be permanent. As I said, there's no finishing on site. They just put it into the frame and just left it. It looks like they designed it so that it can be removed and taken apart again. And like you have the steel frame is exposed. There's gaps between the units, and the units looks like they just clamped in place. We don't see any clamps here. We'll see drawings later on. They're either just kind of lightly bolted in place or just clamped in place. And they're not even clamped very well because you see like they're kind of moving. They're not flush, they're not like sitting in place. It looks like they're kind of shifting out of place a little bit. That's disastrous. In fact, if you look at that, like that bit of steel is broken there. Like it's supposed to be plugged into there, but the plug failed. And so now this thing is gonna fall off at some point because that beam is falling down. It's not very good. So temporary structures, this looks like it's meant to be a temporary structure, and temporary structures are fine if they're used temporarily. But because they're temporary structures, they're usually not as robust as a permanent structure. And so they'll fall apart more quickly than properly permanent structures, right? So that's the problem. Why was the Utulek designed to be temporary? Like why is it like this? Why did the architect choose to do this? So in the game, according to the game, the Santao group, which is a construction group, they're supposedly building a better, more permanent city somewhere else called Rabia. They're building a more permanent city for the Orcs. And it's much nicer than this, according to the advertisements. So maybe the idea is this is a temporary living place for the Orcs until the permanent city is finished. Then they move into the nice permanent city and they move out of here. Now I don't know if you believe that or not. If you play the game, you never actually see Rabia, so maybe you just don't believe it. Maybe it's a lie. In any case, it looks like people have been living here far too long, right? Like you look at the decay on these units, it looks like people have been living here for longer than they were meant to, because things are not looking good. It's also possible that Rabia is just a lie, and all the Orcs were just moved here and just left here to die. Right? They just, oh, you know what? You're in the Utulek now. Well, good luck. And then they just close the doors and leave them in there, and you know, that's what happens sometimes in ghettos. In human history, that's what happened to some Jews at some point in the 1930s and 40s. If you know your history, so you know. You say, oh, you just live here temporarily and we'll move you to a better place, and then you just leave them and just let them die. That's possible. Anyway, regardless of whether Rabia is real and whether you believe it or not, what is apparent is that this place is past its use by date, right? It is past the point where it needs to either be renovated or replaced, because it is actually falling apart. And like no matter what kind of architecture you have, if you leave it long enough, it's gonna start falling apart. And if you use something past its design life, it's gonna be a problem. So that's not just a prefabricated building problem, that's just an any building problem, right? Now it's possible that this place was not designed to last very long in the first place, in which case that would be a design problem. So that's one thing, it's just not meant to be permanent. Secondly, we already saw some evidence of overcrowding, right? We have a clinic that doesn't actually have a clinic, it's just in the street. And then we have, you know, people who aren't really properly housed. So when you have overcrowding, you're gonna have problems no matter what, right? So like if you put too many people in a room, it's gonna be a problem. Like the structure has a certain strength. If you put too many people on it, the structure's gonna collapse, right? So if you have a bridge that's designed for 20 people, you put 20 people on it, it's fine. You put 200 people on it, it's gonna fall apart. So, so like things like ventilation, water, electricity, like maybe your house it's got wires in it, it's got electricity, and if you have like a normal number of people using the electricity, it's fine. But if you have like 200 people in the house all turning on their computers and playing video games at the same time, then you're gonna destroy the power system because you're putting too much load into it. All the wires are gonna melt. And so just when you have too many people using something, you know, if you have more people using a thing than it was designed for, you're gonna break it, right? And so when you overcrowd architecture, you're gonna break things. And also, if you have enough spare space, you have enough space to move people around to repair things, right? Let's say like one of these units is busted, you need to fix it. Well, where do the people go? Like, the people are living there, what are they gonna do? If there are empty units, you can, okay, you move like next door for a month. We're gonna spend a month repairing your unit, and then a month later you come back in and you're fine. So if you have space for people to move around, then you can repair things. But if you're so overcrowded that people have nowhere to go, then you can't really afford to repair things, because what are you going to do? Kick them on the street? Hey, why don't you be homeless for a month? While we repair your building, they'll be like, I'd rather live in a broken building than to live on the street. And so that's why I'm not going to go out on the street. And so then the thing never gets repaired. You see what I mean? So when you're overcrowded, there's a lot of these problems that become impossible to fix. Even otherwise fixable problems become impossible to fix. Or even otherwise normal activities become impossible activities, like, you know, you playing video games. Yeah, okay, you can run one computer in your room, but if you run 100 computers with graphics cards in your room, then you're gonna melt the cables and you're gonna overheat the room, and you know, you see all these problems. So we have overcrowding in the Utulek, and that's gonna be a problem regardless of whether we have these prefabricated units or not. Like, even if you have permanent buildings, it's still going to be a problem, right? Thirdly, and related to the last point, we see all these jerry-rigged wires. so it appears that the Utulek was never designed to be upgraded. Or if it was, then it has been upgraded beyond the capacity of the design, right? What do I mean? So these cables, usually when you build a cable duct, you leave some empty space. So you're like, if you need, oh, I need to put a cable in here. But you put a bigger duct in, because you think, okay, in the future, if I need to put in a few more cables, you can just use the same duct, right? So the cable ducts are usually not fully occupied, at least when they're first designed, so that you have space to upgrade it with more cables. The fact that the cables are all out in the open like this means that they've used up all the cable ducts, right? So they've used up all the upgrade capacity that's built into the building, and now they're just upgrading it anywhere they can. And again, this is a different kind of overcrowding. It's not an overcrowding of people, but it's an overcrowding of infrastructure, right? Because there's more people, they need more infrastructure, and there's not enough space for people, but there's also not enough space for the infrastructure required to support those people. So again, like, it's overcrowding again, but it's not just people, is what I mean. So when you do this, then again, you're gonna lead to failures, because this is unsafe. It's prone to fires, it's prone to accidents. It's not, this is not ideal, right? And then number 4, the people who are forced to live here, they're forced here against their will. They didn't choose to come here. And these are also, they're forced here by an abusive government. Like, these are oppressed people, right? So chances are they had their property seized, and so they came here with no money, no property. And when you put a lot of poor people into a small space, and you also don't give them enough supplies, and you don't give them enough services, you're gonna have problems no matter where it is. You can put them in a palace, the palace is gonna fall apart, because you take a whole lot of poor people with no resources and no help. What are they gonna do? So it doesn't matter where they live, it's gonna be a problem. So what's going on here in the Utulek? It's not, like, the problem here is not just because they're living in prefabricated architecture, although I suspect that some of the problems with how these things are prefabricated is contributing to the problems. But you have a lot of oppressed, poor people, overcrowded, in a space that's not designed for that many people, and that's why this place is a slum. Oh, and it's being occupied past its use by date, right? It's being occupied longer than it was designed for. Yeah, alright, so that's the Utulek. It's a bit of a disaster, really. Anyway, let's take a look around. That's enough theory for now. Let's walk through the Utulek and see what's going on. I should get back down. Right, we're going that way. Ah, cops. So, what are these guys doing? Sleeping rough? Burning barrels? Yeah, sleeping rough. So as we come down here, we see these cops harassing these people. Now, okay, so we have a scene of oppression, I get it. It's not really plausible though. In the real world, cops tend not to go into ghettos. Because ghettos are hostile, man. Like these cops, they're not making friends, they're making enemies. they're not being friendly. And so everybody here hates the cops. Like, all my homies say F the police, is what's going on here. And so when the cops come in here, if they are not careful, they're gonna get killed. And so cops usually don't go into a place where it's hostile and they're heavily outnumbered. Or if they go in, they might go in for a raid. They'll go in fast, they'll shoot first, and they'll leave quickly, right? They're not gonna stand around and wait to get attacked like this. So, like, ghettos are extremely dangerous for the cops because nobody likes them. So this scene, yeah, I don't believe this, right? Like, this is a story told by people who don't understand how ghettos work. Because the cops would get attacked, they would die. They would not survive this. Because they're like completely outnumbered and just standing around. So remember what I said earlier about ghettos versus internment camps. Like, ghetto is you're kind of trapped in the neighborhood and you're not allowed to leave. But you're inside, you're free to do what you like. So you cops don't go into ghettos. An internment camp, the cops maintain control. The cops they have more weapons, more guns, and they tell people what to do, and they tell people where to live and where to go and what to do. And so in an internment camp, you would have guards, a lot of guards, and they might interact with the people like this, but not in a ghetto. I hope that's clear. Maybe just look it up on Wikipedia if it's not clear what the difference is. An internment camp is like a prison. A ghetto is like a lawless neighborhood, a lawless, impoverished neighborhood. Right? It's two different things. So this is like a weird mix-up of two different things, is what I'm saying. And man, like this alleyway too, like look, architecture, there is an architecture of security or an architecture of insecurity. This is so insecure. Like, imagine like there could be snipers anywhere. Like, this is so not safe for the cops. Like, if somebody up there just starts shooting, what are you gonna do? Shoot back? They're just gonna disappear into the buildings and you can't find them. So yeah, no, this architecture is incredibly unsafe for the cops. Yeah, no, this doesn't make sense. Okay, let's move on. So we have more people, again being harassed by the police. Oh, here we go. So here we have a unit that we can go into. So this is our first interior of one of these living units. Yeah, shut you up. Right, turn off the radio. So this is what this looks like on the inside. What do we have? We have here fold-out beds. Okay, fold-out beds. And then here we have a kitchen unit. Look at that. We have a stove top. We have storage. We have more storage. And then we have more storage. And then we have shower, toilet, sink. And like a little nook for a computer. That's curious. So this is a living module, right? It's like a living module. And if you look closely, there's like a partition here. Look at that. There's a movable partition if you want to close off parts of the module. So you can divide this into 3 separate spaces, plus the bathroom. So like this is the sleeping area, you can close this off, and so then you have sleeping and the kitchen separate. Or you can open it up, make it one big space. There's no dining table. I guess maybe some of this stuff can serve as tables, but... So if you think about it, the design of it is not bad. Like as a living unit, it's like a little apartment. I mean, it's not luxurious, but it's all there, right? It's functional. Everything you need is there. Kitchen, toilet, sleeping, living space. And you can like move the partitions back and forth if you need to divide the spaces. And like the architecture seems fine, the material seems fine. There's enough lighting. So like it's the problem is not the architecture, or like it's not the design of the units. This place has been ransacked. That's the problem. The problem is that this place has been ransacked. If it wasn't ransacked, like imagine this but new, right? Imagine this but new. It'll be okay. You can live there for a while. You see what I mean? So it's not the issue is not the architecture. The issue is the fact that the cops came in and busted up the place. That's why this place is a slum, right? Alright, interesting. What is going on here anyway? We have like a pile of... I wouldn't say rubbish, it's probably something useful.
You need to help us.
Not sure what it is though. Alright, up ahead there's like a whole lot of this temporary stuff. Oh, like, look at this, power? So I guess they're trying to get more power. And that's why there's so many cables here. So the power consumption, again, so they need more power than this place was designed for. So they just added more power infrastructure onto the side of the building. Extremely unsafe, but I guess it works, right? Don't waste water. Yeah. So there's like again, there's not enough water for all the people because it's overcrowded. Up here we have more cops. Cops being confronted by people. Yeah, there's no way those cops survive. I mean, they have guns, sure, but... So here we have a police outpost, I guess. Back here, if I sneak here real quick, we have supplies. So the police are guarding a whole lot of food. I mean, there's no way people don't just break in here and steal all the food. Right, so there's like a food warehouse. Not sure what that is. It looks like a residential unit that's been converted for more storage. Alright, here we have a bit of a sculpture. So this is cool. There's like a Icarus wings sculpture made out of light. Let me step back and look at it. So it looks cool, but I'm not sure how believable that is because we have working lights and we have it's using power. Given that we already don't have enough power in the city, to waste power on decorative lighting is a little bit implausible, right? Like, I'm not saying you can't have art. Like, people, even in the worst situations, people would try to make art. But it's not just art, it's the fact that it's using electricity. And people don't have enough electricity, so you're wasting a precious resources. Like if you make art out of junk, okay, but this is not junk, this is like actual resources that people need. So the sculpture, not really believable. But, you know, I do understand people want to make art, no matter how bad the situation is. The stairs up, I'm not sure if there's anything up there. Let me just check real quick. Not really. It's more of the same. We have a little bit of a storage unit here. Interesting, it's just storage. Alright, let's go down. Can we get a good look upwards? Not really. Okay, so going down, the police station continues. This police station, man. So this is the police station. They have a little bit of a security gate here. And so I have problems with this, right? So this is all makeshift. And it's not clear why the police would have a makeshift station. Because they're the oppressors, right? If anything, they should have like a pristine police station. Because they have the money, they have the power. Like, you guys live in a slum. We have like, you know, we have state-of-the-art military equipment, we have all the funding. You see what I mean? Like, why would the police station also be in such poor condition, right? Like, you would think there'd be like a big front door and like a big steel door, and you go past the steel door and like it's just pristine. Just to highlight the contrast between the oppressor and the oppressed. You see what I mean? So the fact that the oppressor's base is also just covered in wires, like, why would it be like that? Why would the police live like this? So yeah, a little bit strange. These are the cells. So the police hold people in cells. Yeah, again, I don't know why the police are in here. The police should be outside the ghetto. There's no way this is safe for the police. And this why would... Yeah, no. No. Like, in the real world, if you have prisoners, you would take them out of the ghetto. And like take them to a black site somewhere where their family doesn't even know where they are. That's what would actually happen. That's what does happen in certain parts of the world where there's oppression. Like, you don't have the actual prison inside the ghetto. So this is, if you know anything about how ghettos work, like, none of this makes sense. But according to the game, there is a police outpost here. And it's all like, so this is a prefabricated unit in there, right? Let me just try and see what kind of unit this is. It's not clear, huh? So it's not a renovated residential unit. There's pipes. Is it like a workshop? Not sure how to read this. Okay, moving along. Through the police station. Out this way we have another big security gate. So up there's the market, but before we go into the market, over on this side, there's a little bit more police station. We have like a weapon locker there. It's not that well guarded, is it? I mean, you can probably like break in here, steal some guns, start shooting the place up. So here we have a office module. Look at that. So we have the same partitions again. See that? The temporary partitions. But this time, instead of like a bedroom, kitchen, and toilet, we have a toilet on one end, lockers, and then we have like a office on the other end. So this is not a residential unit, it's like an office unit, but it does have a shower and a toilet. So apparently these modules come in different configurations. Okay, so back out of the police station, and we're going towards the market. We have more homeless people, more alleyways. So if you probably have noticed by now that the Utulek, this level, in terms of gameplay, is just one corridor, right? You go in one end, you go out the other end. So from a gameplay perspective, that's like, it's easy to understand, easy to control the player's movement, easy to control how the player experiences. So like the game designers wanted you to see that conflict, see the cops oppressing the people, They wanted to put that in, and they want the player to see it, and so you have to walk through that space to get to here. There's no other way to get to here. So they put that in for narrative purposes. In terms of urban design, it's awful, right? Because the connectivity of the spaces is just awful. It's just one line and it goes in a big U. So if you want to get from here to here, you have to go all the way around through the police station. There's no direct connection. Like it's bad urban design, but maybe if you're the police and you want to control people's movement, if you don't want them moving around anyway, oh sure, okay, sure. You just lock them in an alleyway and don't let them move. But it's not a good place to live. Like with the circulation like this. I don't know if we believe that. It could just be like a gameplay thing again. Like maybe if it was a real city, it wouldn't be like that. Alright, moving up. These are like what are these? Storage? Alright, police storage. And then through here we have a childcare center. Not too much to say about the childcare center, but if we go inside, we can see that it is in fact a residential unit that has been repurposed. So the beds are there, the kitchen is there, and the bathroom is there, right? So this is a residential unit. I guess they didn't have childcare units, or they don't have. I mean, as I was looking at this earlier, look, these are modules, right? They're just like rooms in a box, prefabricated. And conceivably, you can build anything in these boxes. You can have a residential unit, sure. You can have a clinic, you can have a classroom, you can have an office, you can even have like a small factory or like a workshop. You can have like a hydroponics unit. You can have anything. Like these units, they could be like a lot of different units, and you just kind of put them in however you like, right? But here we see that the people living here had to repurpose a residential unit into a nursery, into a kindergarten. So is it that they didn't have any other units except for the residential units? It's like if that's the case, then it's a badly designed structure because they didn't have the spaces that the people would need. It could be that this is the residential district, and so then everything here is residential, and they expect you to move somewhere else. But even in the residential district, there'll be shops, there'll be schools, there would be like kindergartens and things. So even in a residential unit, you would need more. In a residential area, you would need more than just residential units, if that makes sense. So not sure about this. It could just be a symptom of bad planning, or it could be a symptom of overcrowding, right? Like they thought there were a certain number of people, and so they had put in a certain mixture of units, but it turns out a different amount of people were moved in, and so they need different kinds of units. So who knows? But the underlying point I'm trying to make is that the spaces are not being used for what they were designed for. Right there, this space is not being used for what it was designed for, and so then is the problem the designer, or is the problem the user? Like, who made the mistake? Did they design the wrong thing, or or is the right thing being used wrongly? Could be both. Moving on up the stairs here. So now we have the actual market, and then finally we have some nicer public space. This makes more sense. So the cops over on the other side, the cops harassing people, and that feels like it's shoehorned in, because there's no way you would believe that if the cops were that hostile, that people wouldn't just kill the cops. The cops were all outnumbered and everybody hates them. Like, you would just have a riot and the riot would just murder the cops. And you can't just rile people up like that. So here, this makes more sense. So the cop is here, but he's just looking at things, right? He's not being a nuisance. I mean, he's not bothering anyone. And people are living okay. There's a market. There's stuff being sold. People can buy things. If you look over there, there's someone cooking. So there's like food being prepared. and here we have vegetables. So there's enough food for people to eat. It's not like they're running out of food. It's not like they're desperate for food, not rioting because they're hungry. And so like if you look at this, okay, the environment is overcrowded and not very well maintained. But people are not struggling in this side of the city. They're not struggling that much. They're not starving, right? They're not literally dying of starvation right now. So maybe this makes more sense than the other side, is what I'm saying. Back here we have a bookstore. I don't know what it is with this game and bookstores. First of all, I like books. You should read books, right? Smart people read books. But why would a slum have a bookstore? Can these people afford to read? Do they have like enough time to read? Maybe. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. What I'm trying to say is, if they have time to read, they're doing okay. They might not be doing great, but they're doing okay. Could be worse. Could be worse. Like, it could be that you need to burn the books because you have no firewood. Like, it could be that bad. It's not that bad here. It's bad, but it's not that bad. So here we have somebody cooking, right? This is like a... I can't read what that says. Let me see what's going on.
You need something?
We have meat. we have... Alright, we have meat. We're not gonna ask what meat it is. We have slop. What is that? Salad? Salad. So the thing about like a food store like this is that often the food stores make sense if people have work. Right? They are busy working, and so lunchtime they come to the food store, they're earning money from their job, so they come here, they buy lunch, they eat lunch, they go back to work. What I mean is, a food store like this only makes sense if the food is cheap enough, or the people are making enough money at the jobs that they wouldn't take time out to cook, right? What do I mean? If you earn $5 an hour, it means that if the food costs less than $5, like if it would take you an hour to make lunch, it'd probably take you less time, but let's say it'd take you an hour to make lunch, but you earn $5 an hour, and the food costs $3, so instead of taking an hour out of your workday to cook, and you lose $5 because you're working 1 hour less, you spend $3, you don't cook, you save 1 hour, you spend the $3, so then you save $2. You see what I mean? Does that make sense? So either you lose $5 to take 1 hour out of your workday to cook for yourself, or you pay the $3 and spend that hour working to earn $5 back, and therefore you're still up $2, even though you pay for the food. So paying for food only makes sense that way. Does that make sense? Or paying for someone to cook for you. If you don't have work, and you have all the free time in the world, then you will just cook for yourself, because cooking for yourself is free. The food is not free, but the cooking is free, instead of having to pay someone else to cook for you. So it only makes sense to pay someone else to cook for you if you're making so much money that paying them makes more sense than you cooking for yourself. That's the economics of a food store like this. And, you know, like, for example, historically, like in Rome, you would have, like, in ancient Rome, I'm talking about, like there'd be like pizza shops in ancient Rome. And this is like ancient pizza, which is not the same as modern pizza, by the way. But you know, there's like archaeological evidence of pizza stores in Rome, in ancient Rome, and they're like, oh wow, look, fast food existed like 2,000 years ago. There was already fast food. Yeah, because you know, in ancient Rome, it was a big city. People worked for money, they earned money, and instead of taking time out of their day to cook their own pizza, which would, you know, take an hour, they would like buy it from someone else and spend that hour working instead, and they would make more money that way, right? So like in a big city, it makes sense. What I'm trying to say is, a food store like this is evidence of a lively economy. where a lot of people have work. Enough people have work that they can pay for somebody else to cook for them. Does that make sense? Economics? I hope that makes sense. You kind of have to think about the economics of it, right? But you know, the existence of a food store tells you a lot about the number of people who are willing to pay for food instead of cooking for themselves. Things to think about when you like look at a city. Over here we have a lot of fruits.
Je to drahý. Musela by si vzít půjčku.
So again, like they're not starving.
Nezastavujte se.
They do have fresh vegetables. I don't know how good the vegetables are. They don't look that good. But at least they have vegetables, right? They're not starving. Here we have a bit of a shrine slash memorial filled with photographs. So this sort of thing, if you're not familiar, sometimes, often actually, often in wartime or in disasters, people would like put up pictures of missing family members, hoping that other people would know what happened to them. Sometimes like they would just put up pictures of their dead family members to remember them by. But usually the memorials, they just keep it in their own homes, they don't put it in public. Unless they're in like a refugee camp or something and they don't really have a private home. But if they have a private home, like your own memorial is a private thing. Putting the picture in public is usually because they're missing. They might be dead, but they're missing and you're trying to find out what happened to them. And so you're hoping somebody else will come along, see that picture and say, oh, I saw that guy. He's over there, or you know, or he's kind of doing something else, or I saw him in the other city, he's doing something. So you, like if they're missing or you kind of separated from your family, then sometimes people do this to try to find people. So that's probably what this is.
Ahoy! Why didn't you go
Coming
check
around
it?
here, we have clothing being sold. Oh, by the way, you see these stores? You see no one stealing anything? You see like... So if people are putting their goods out on the street to sell, it means the security is pretty good. Because if people are stealing your food all the time, you're not going to put them out on the street like this, right? Yeah, so in parts of the world where security is bad, like the stores would have massive steel fronts and there'd be like a tiny hole. And if you want to buy something, you look in the tiny hole, it's like, excuse me, can I get like an apple? And they'll be like, it'll be $50. And you give them $50, inflation, am I right? Give them $50 and here's your apple. So they would conduct business through a little hole in the giant steel gate in front of them. So like when the security is bad, you would have to defend your goods from people stealing stuff. So the fact that people can put their wares just on the street and you don't have people just kind of beating you up and stealing all your food, it means the security is pretty okay.
Talk to me.
So again, like these are clues. Like, even though we're supposedly in a slum, supposedly in a terrible place, the fact that shops like this exist and everything's just put out in the open, it means it's actually not that bad. It's actually not that bad. People are not so desperate that they're just stealing things from the shops, right? Again, like how to read cities and like how cities tell you about what's going on in a society. Right, you have clothes, you have grains, I guess. These are grains. These are like nuts, seeds. Alright, so like plenty of food. And here we have meat. I'm not sure what kind of meat, but it is meat. And then here we have electronics. This is just like storage back here. So yeah, the market is well stocked, there's plenty of stuff. Not a lot of shoppers. You might expect more shoppers than this, but I guess that's like a game engine limitation, kind of too many NPCs walking around. We even have a shop selling plastic containers. Okay, so plastic containers, right? So in places where there's running water, you don't need that many plastic containers. In parts of the world where there isn't running water, where you actually have to go to a well to take water to bring back home to drink. So in places where you don't have running water in the home, then you would actually have shops selling plastic containers like this. In parts of Africa, for example, you do see this. I guess in other places too. Wherever you don't have running water and you're like, well, how do I get water then? Well, you have to buy a container and you have to go to the well and you have to carry the water back. So yeah. So you don't have shops selling plastic containers like this where you live,
It
probably.
stands out, even here.
But in some parts of the world, actually, you do have stuff like this. Up here, we have more electronics. Right. Oh, there's a couple of units back here. What is this? So this, it looks like a module, right? So outside here, you can see it's one of these modules, but on the inside, it's a storage module. It looks like. So there's like one room there. The doors look pretty heavy. So it looks like a storage module that has been converted into makeshift residences. So people just kind of put a bunch of beds in a storage module, it looks like. Well, maybe not, because there's toilets. Maybe it's not a storage module. Wait a minute, why are there toilets? Hold up. Is it a toilet block? Maybe it's a toilet block. Maybe it's a toilet block. And what is this then? Why would this be in a toilet? Like, what is this? Storage? I'm not sure what this is. Could be a toilet block. A public toilet module. He's alive, by the way. I don't know what's going on with him. He's just lying there. There's an alleyway back there. Not too important. Coming back this way. Can we see much? We can't really see much. It's the same thing. Coming back this way, we have a big-ass elevator. So this marketplace, right? It's actually not a great place for a marketplace if you think about it. It's like in an alleyway. There's no connecting roads. Usually a marketplace would be at a major crossroad. Because that's where most people are, right? If you have a shop, you want as many people to walk past your shop as possible. Because everybody that walks past your shop is a potential customer, right? So somebody walks past, they see something, they're like, oh, I want to I'm gonna buy that. Right? So the window shoppers and like the impulse buyers, you want as many people walking past your shop as possible because that's good for business. So what happens is the marketplaces usually are major intersections or near major intersections where people, wherever they're going, they walk past the market anyway and they just buy stuff while they're there. So like the horizontally, we're just in a dead end anyway. Right? That side is a dead end. That side is police, so nobody comes through there except the cops. So we're like in a dead end horizontally. It doesn't go, none of the streets go anywhere. But maybe vertically, this place joins up a whole lot of different floors. So although horizontally the circulation is bad, maybe it's a crossroads vertically. So if it's a crossroads vertically, that would explain why the marketplace is here. Because people come through. Although, having said that, the elevator, the way elevators work, they go past the floor if you don't deliberately go there. It's not like it stops every floor, right? So even though it might be like a vertical nexus in the circulation, I'm not too convinced about it, right? Like, why would people, like if I'm going from a bottom floor to the top floor, why would I also stop here to buy something? Like you wouldn't. So you want, like if you have a marketplace or have a shop anywhere, you want to maximize foot traffic outside your shop. That's like the ideal location for your shop. Anyway, we have like a big elevator here for vertical circulation. We will take the stairs though, because we're here to look at architecture. Down here we have more vegetables, right? More vegetable shops. And then over here we have...
Watch yourself.
What is this? Food? I guess. What does it say? Oh, hey, cereal. I don't know. I mean, what I'm saying is, they're not starving. There's plenty of stuff in the marketplace. I get the impression that the economy is okay, right? I'm not sure what to make of it. If they have enough money for all this, if there's enough of an economy for a market like this, do they not have enough money to fix some of the problems in the architecture? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe they don't have enough money for that.
Don't try and...
So this steel column is missing. Yeah, okay, so video games do stuff like this a lot. They're like, oh look, the structure is broken. Yet it's not. If you break this is gonna fall down on you because there's way too much stuff above, right? This happens in video games so much. It's like, oh look, this thing's falling apart, it's missing a piece. And then whoever designed the place just don't think about structure or gravity or weight. And they just take out a piece there's no way that's gonna just stay there, right? Anyway, you can see the steel frame is still going. This steel frame just extends through the entire building, and then in some parts you have the modules slotted into the frame, and then some parts you don't. So like this part, it's a staircase module as opposed to a living module. Yeah. Like the structure is fairly simple actually, and I guess fairly efficient. Like it could work if it wasn't overcrowded and if it was properly maintained, I think. I'm just trying to figure out like what is the relationship between the prefabricated module and the modular nature of the architecture and the fact that this place is like a slum. I don't think there's actually a relationship. I think it's just like the slum thing is a different problem from the architecture thing. Anyway, let's keep moving. I'll have more to say about this at the end. So as we climb the stairs, we have another module here. We can come inside. This one has been converted into an office. Look at that. Somebody has a desk here. Back here they do have a bed. They don't sleep in the actual bed. So this is a residential unit, I think, although we're missing some storage over there. The kitchen is here, and then the shower is there. I don't know how that happened. Is this thing movable? Can you move the stove? No, because this is built in. No, the stove... Yeah, I don't know what happened here. The thing with these prefabricated modules is that all the furniture is built in. Like, it's built into the module. You can't just move them around. And here, it looks like they've just moved stuff around. And I think the level designer just took a few too many liberties with the architecture here. Because you can't just, like, move the kitchen over by a meter, because everything's supposed to be stuck to the wall. It's supposed to be built into the wall. So here it looks like they just took the kitchen module and just moved it over by a couple of meters in order to clear out this space for the office, which doesn't make any sense in this construction because you're not supposed to move things. Okay, moving on. We get to here. Right. And at this point, what do we see? Oh, we are closer to the sky. Look at that.
Been behind the desk too long.
Here we have a fish sculpture. Oh, before we go to this fish sculpture, there's a hot dog stand. Look at that. Do you trust these hot dogs? What's in the hot dog? What's it made of? Who knows?
This is going to be good.
3 hot dogs. Alright, there's a hot dog stand. Although it's a strange place to put it because we are kind of away from the market now. Kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so you're not going to get too many customers here. We have a whale sculpture. I mean, that's cool. Like I said, like even in the worst circumstances, sometimes you'll still find people making art because what else are they going to do, right? And this whale sculpture, unlike the sculpture downstairs, it doesn't use any lights. It doesn't use any electricity. So this makes more sense, the fact that it's not using power.
Should have got them vaccinated before coming here.
Inside here, we have a shop, and they're selling guns. Ah, it's just selling guns. Now, I'm pretty sure this is illegal. I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to be able to sell guns inside the ghetto. There is a police just walking around outside. He doesn't seem to care. He might be taking bribes, so he might be taking bribes to not shut down the gun shop. In fact, he's probably guarding the gun shop for the owner.
Australia.
Yeah, so up here, so it's like back. We're in the back alleys, away from the main market, and we have like a black market gun store. Look at all these guns, holy crap. And this is the other thing, they have guns. You can buy guns in here. Why would you just not buy a gun and shoot the cops? You know what I mean? There's no way the cops are safe in here. So okay, so like in a slum like this, often the slum itself would have its own shadow government. Shadow government, I don't know, maybe that's too formal. You know, like in any human society, there's going to be a power structure. Like there are people who have more influence than other people. You know, there'll be somebody, if you need to solve a problem, there'll be someone you know you're going to talk to. Like he's going to solve your problems for you for a price, right? So there's always governments. Even in the absence of a formal government, there'll be people who have more influence and more ability to motivate people. Maybe they have more money, maybe they're just smarter. For whatever reason, they can get things done. And so when you need something done, you go to them. And in a ghetto, the cops usually wouldn't go in because they just don't have the numbers, right? They're completely outnumbered. Like, they wouldn't go in unless they have some sort of agreement with the local boss. It could be like a gangster, it could be a mafia, or it could just be like the local elder, the village chief, or whoever it is. And the cops would be there with the consent of the local boss. Because otherwise it'd be too dangerous for them. And if they're there with the consent of the local boss, they wouldn't be harassing the locals. Right? I mean, they might arrest someone if they have to. Like if they say, oh, hey, somebody murdered someone, we have to arrest them because we can't just let murderers walk around. And so they would negotiate with the local boss and they're like, okay, we're gonna arrest this guy because he murdered someone. You're not gonna stop us because we have to do this. And the local boss would be like, okay, we don't want murderers either. And so like, you see what I mean? So there'll be some sort of agreement, because otherwise, in order for the police to be here, without the consent of the people, they would need overwhelming numbers and overwhelming force. Otherwise it wouldn't work, they wouldn't survive. There's a gun store. People would just buy guns and just shoot the cops. Right? The cops wouldn't survive without some understanding with the locals. And that's the case anywhere, by the way. Like most of the time, people respect the cops, but if they don't respect the cops, the people can rise up. It happens sometimes. So like, yeah, the cops have guns and yes, they enforce the law. But at the end of the day, it's only with the consent of the people. Because you can always rebel, you can always riot, and sometimes people do riot. So that's what I mean when I say, like, when we first came into the city and the cops were just harassing people, that doesn't make any sense. This makes more sense. The fact that the cops are just standing around and there's an illegal gun store there, this actually makes a lot more sense because, okay, these guys are being bribed. That makes a lot of sense. It happens a lot, by the way. Cops get bribed. Alright. Behind the gun store, we go up. So we're going up. Why are we going up? We're going up to the territory of the Augmented Rights Coalition, ARC. So ARC is, I guess I need to explain this. How far away are we actually from ARC? Are we there? Oh, we're there. Okay, this is ARC territory already. So the elevator comes up to here. And we are away from the streets now, away from the residential area. So before I go in, the Augmented Rights Coalition are a group a political group that is trying to defend the rights of augmented people. So they are against the government. This political group also has a paramilitary wing. And they may or may not be bombing people. Because, you know, because they're being oppressed. So they may or may not be terrorists. Maybe. And ARC, they are at the top levels of the Utulek. So all the poor augmented people live below, and they occupy the upper levels. And the cops don't come up here, and ARC, they don't really go down there either. So they have a sort of an understanding with the police. It's like the police don't come into ARC territory, and ARC lets the police do their thing down below. According to the story, that's the understanding. So remember how I said before, the police usually have to have an understanding with the local boss in order to be able to patrol a slum like this. In order to be able to safely patrol a ghetto, you need to have some understanding with the locals. So according to the story, this is what's happening. The cops are down below, ARC is above, and they kind of stay out of each other's way. Yeah, and so the weapon shop is in between, right? You see that? So the weapon shop supplies ARC mostly, probably, but they can also sell to the people below, and the cops, they don't, like, the further up they go, the cops are less of a nuisance because they're closer to ARC territory and they have this understanding. And so the police don't interrupt the weapons business because the weapons business are working with ARC. You see what I mean? Okay, right, so corrupt police. But also the police, I mean, yes, they're corrupt, but they have to do that because otherwise they can't survive in this place. They'll just get killed otherwise. So the only reason they don't get killed is because they have an understanding with the local gangsters, which is ARC. Alright, so now we're in ARC territory. This is curious because this is not a main entrance. We come in and this is like a storage area. We have like a pile of TVs, which is interesting. And then we have like cables and like ladders and then food and other supplies. So we come in and this is storage. So this might be like the cargo entrance. This might not be the main entrance. Not the front door. I don't actually know where the front door would be. But we come in into a like storage area. And like what is this? This is like storage? Okay, more storage in this corridor. A lot of this is closed, we can't see anything. And then we come through here. What is this? Oh, look at that. So we have a surface area that is open all the way to the sky. And there's no people back here. Isn't that interesting? Let's jump down. So what is this? This is a different part of the Utulek. We just kind of come out and now we are somewhere else. So what is this? We have a long corridor down this way, and then on both sides going all the way up we have the steel structure, and then we have the modules slotted into the steel structure. So now we are behind all the modules, right? And the machinery does say Centaur Group. Remember how I said the Centaur Group is supposedly building Rabia, the other city? So they also built this place. So they're a big construction company. So what's happening? So these, apparently, Utulek is long rows, long shelves of these modules, and then on the inside is the street, and then in between the rows there's the service area. If you look down here, there's a track. Look at this. These are wheels. So there's like a train track. And the modules come in on the trains. Although that's been all blocked up for some reason. They come in on the trains, and we can't see it clearly, but we'll see it more clearly later on. There's cranes. That's a crane. There's cranes that lift the modules into place. And the cranes move up and down the steel frame. So you see how that works? There's a big ass steel frame, and then, well, it's big ass steel frames on both sides. In the middle there's the train that brings the modules in. And then up and down the steel frame we have cranes picking up the modules and then slotting them into place. So that's how this thing is built. You build the big ass steel frame and you put the cranes in place, and then the trains come in, you lift them in place, the train keeps moving on, and you kind of lift, as the train goes past, you kind of lift all these modules into place, into place, into place. And that's how they built the Utulek. It's a giant container system, basically. A giant self-contained container system with a built-in crane that takes the modules from the trains and put them... Amazing, right? It's amazing! Very cool. Very, very cool. And you know, conceptually, that's great. So what went wrong? Why would that turn into this disaster, right? Why is there a bunch of units just piled up there? That's obviously not supposed to happen. You're supposed to slot them into the shelf, right? And then, like, why is that just kind of fallen over on its side and lying across the track like this? So that, like, you know, the system is fine, but something went wrong. Like, something went wrong here. Something went wrong back there. So they were building this thing, and then something happened, and then everything fell onto the ground. And so Utulek is apparently unfinished, right? Conceivably, it wasn't meant to be like this. They just kind of didn't finish it. Something happened. Let's climb up. Alright, so the game turns this into a bit of a climbing puzzle. We have to get back here. Actually, what is this module? Is this a residential module? There's no bathroom. That's storage back there. Are those beds? There's no toilet. Those are beds. Or maybe it's just like a sleeping unit. Alright, we climb up. And then, like, here's one of these cranes that we press the button. So the crane comes down. We're gonna use the crane as an elevator. But you can imagine how the cranes would just pick up the modules and then slot them into place, right? So that's how this is supposed to work. there's another crane there. You can see that it's holding one of these modules, and it will slot that into place. Or that's the theory. Let me just like take my time. So there, like why aren't those properly slotted in? Why are those just like hanging out there like that? Shouldn't that be like all put in and flush? So they didn't finish this thing. Like they just kind of put it in place and then left it. Like it's under construction. It's not finished. You imagine when it's finished, it would be flush and all slotted in properly. Coming out here, we have, this is a residential unit, right? We have like a kitchen there, storage, sleeping, bathroom. Where's the front door? There does not appear to be a... Do you know what? There's no door. You know what, never mind. Just don't look too closely and everything's gonna be okay. There's no door. It's not that there's a door but it's locked. There's just no door. Never mind. Don't look too closely, you guys. Okay, so here, what's going on there? It's not continuous. I guess there's... So there's like a gap this way. There's also a gap this way, but not on this side. I'm not sure what to make of that. But I guess you do need gaps, like you need ventilation maybe? But you could just have like ventilation shafts. The train track doesn't turn or anything. Yeah, not too sure. I think there's some concept art that shows from above it's like square blocks. Like it makes more sense if they're like narrow shelves. It's because you have cranes and they move into the shelf. Like a shelf, you can understand how the storage works. If it's a big square block, you can access the edges, but how do you put the inside modules in place? Because they'll be too far from the crane, you see what I mean? So like if the block is too deep, like how do you build the inside? Whereas if the block is narrow, you just have cranes on one side, cranes on the other, and they just kind of put them on the sides, right? So yeah, not too sure about this. The fact that this looks like a big square block. And there's no trains in there, and there's no... So how do they... I don't know. Not sure if they really thought that through. Alright, up here, and then we climb up here. And then come back, climb up here. I don't remember if we can continue going up that way. I don't think we can. Yeah, I don't think we can go that way. Or maybe we can. Maybe we do go that way. Hold on, what is this? This is... pipes. So these are the steel bits. These are the steel bits that form the steel frame that you then slot the modules into. There's pipes. They're rusted though, so they've been here for a while. How long does it take for pipes to rust this much? It's been a while, huh? And then there's a kitchen unit, but then this is pipes. I don't know what this means. Those used to be beds. There's a sleeping unit. There's no bathroom unit. There's a kitchen unit and there's pipes. That doesn't make any sense. I don't think they really thought this through. Okay, we are going this way. We're going up. Anything else? Nope. Same as before. Okay, let's keep going up. pretty cool, right? Water? Not sure where the water's coming from, but it's pretty bad. Like the structure is just unfinished or broken. Okay, where are we going? This way. Bridge there. If we come in here, we have a site office. Ah, that's cool. So this is the site office with a bunch of documentation here. Oh, I like this. So this is... well, there probably would be more. So construction documents, this is what it looks like. A massive pile of paper. Some people think, oh, construction drawings, it's just drawings, right? No, actually construction documentation is a lot of text. It's a lot of text. Even a relatively small house, it's a lot of text. And the reason why there's a lot of text is because the construction documents is basically a contract. It describes how everything should be built. You write everything out, how everything should be built. And it's all written there. And so then the builder has to follow the contract and has to build it the way it's written. Half the time they don't even read the stuff because they know what they're doing, right? Because like if you say, okay, just build it according to these standards, and they've built the same thing several times before or a lot of times before, and so they know how it's done, so they don't read it. But the text is there anyway because it's a contract, right? So if at any point there's a problem and you have to sue your builder because the builder didn't build the way you designed, then you have to bring out the contract, which is this document, and say, okay, in the document it says you need to build it like this, and you didn't build it like this, you need to pay for it, right? So the whole thing is a contract, and because it's a contract, it's not just the drawings, but you also have to write in words how you build everything in the drawings. So the drawings show you what it is, and the words tell you how it's done, what to do, and how it's done. And so like construction, like the documents, design documents is thick, or the like construction documents are thick. Thick piles of paper is what it looks like. Now you know. So now when you look at like a building blueprints and you think, oh look, that's the building, that's the document, that's how architects build things. They make a drawing and then they build it from the drawing. No, that's a lot of text. There's an enormous pile of text that nobody really reads, but if anything goes wrong, then they look at the text. Okay, so here, this stuff is interesting. There's like construction drawings. So here you go. So you see these steel elements, and you see how they have like these modular beams that plug into the joint, and then you have like modular joints and modular beams, and everything just kind of clicks together, and then the building module or the room kind of clips onto the structure. And you see this here, this is like the clip. So like in the beam there's this little socket, and then you just kind of clip the building, so everything just kind of clicks into place like a toy. And then here we have the elevator. This thing lifts the modules off the train and it puts them into place. So this sort of construction system, it's very clever, and you can put it together on site very fast because everything just kind of clips together, right? So the construction time on site is very fast. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's cheaper. You save time on site. But these clips are complicated, right? Compare this thing to just a bolt or just a weld. A weld is so simple. It's just two pieces of steel and you just kind of weld it and it's done. But a weld, you can't take it apart. You can't clip them together on site and you can't take it apart. So you need to spend a little bit more time on site to weld everything. But the weld is much simpler than these complicated clips. And the weld is also stronger, because these things, they're designed so that you can take them apart again. So they can't be that strong because you can remove them. So these things are more complicated and less sturdy than just a weld. And like the more complicated, less sturdy. And the advantage is you can take it apart again. That's the only advantage. A weld you can't really take apart again. I mean, you can just kind of cut it, I guess, but it's not the same. This, you can just take it apart without damaging anything, without destroying anything. The weld, like, you have to kind of cut it off. You can salvage a bit of the beam, but that part you probably have to throw away because you can't just use it again. So this thing is fast and simple to assemble on site. But it's very complex and very expensive to make in the factory because there's all these complicated pieces, right? Like this clip, complicated. Like this stuff where it just kind of slots in, complicated. Anyway, that's how this thing's put together. Well, there you go. Not much else to say. Let's move on. So we get to this level. We could have taken this elevator, by the way, but I didn't. I chose to walk. Here we have Augmented Rights Coalition. So this is the ARC headquarters. We come in here and I don't know what these things are. They've made interesting arches that don't really make any sense structurally. They don't really fit into the rest of the Utulek. I'm not sure why these are here, except that they look interesting. Architecturally, it doesn't make any sense. Narratively, it doesn't really make any sense. But there you go, there they are. Okay, into the ARC headquarters for real this time. Come in the front door. Oh, we're still... The underlying architecture is still the same. We're still having the steel frame and we're still having these modules. Although I mean, these shouldn't be residential modules anymore, I don't think. I don't know what these modules are, but they should be something else. And then we have... storage. I don't know why ARC just leaves the storage in the main entrance like this, but okay. It's kind of piles of, what is that, food? Potatoes? Flour. There's just sacks of flour sitting on the front door. I don't know why. I don't know why they did that. Okay, so this is ARC. This is the ARC base, I guess. Is that a satellite dish? Crazy. So we're very close to the top. There's a big ARC logo in bright lights there. So given that ARC, they probably have more resources than the people living down below. They're probably not as strapped. So having a big light sculpture up here makes a little more sense. Like the slums down there, it's you'd think that people are pretty desperate and they wouldn't have power to spare. Up here they kind of have power to spare, I guess. They have fancy lights there too. Alright, so let's look around. Where are we and what is this? There's a space. In here we have food storage, water, meat. Meat being cut with power tools. That's fun. And then we have a kitchen. Not just any kitchen, but a big communal kitchen. A couple of sinks. We have food preparation, plating. We have a couple of stoves. And then we have more food preparation. We have meat. Why is that? Oh, that's we're cooking the meat. I see. Shouldn't that be enclosed? Isn't that dangerous? Wouldn't you cook yourself if you stand here? That's probably dangerous. Don't stand here. That should be pointing the other way, right? Because why? This is so dangerous. You cook yourself. Alright, so we have a communal kitchen here, and then we have communal dining out here, right? We have tables. Benches are down there. We have food. And then tables and chairs. So communal kitchen, communal dining on one side. Great. And then on the other side, in here, oh, this is fancy, look at that. We have a game room. They play chess. Oh, very intellectual. They play chess, they play cards, they gamble money. Is that money or is that... What are those? Right. They have fancy red chairs. So the chairs are fancier than any of the chairs we saw downstairs. So I guess Ark is slightly better off than the people below. I guess this incentivizes people to join the organization, right? And then more chairs. So this is like a game room. Relaxation. There's a triangle's rendition of an angel. And then through here we have weights, and we have a fighting ring. So this is a gym, I guess. Exercise ball. So this is odd, because these are all augmented people. This is the augmented rights coalition. They're all augmented. You don't need to exercise your cyborg limbs. You need to maintain your cyborg limbs because they're mechanical. But exercising them don't do anything. Your body, your muscles, if your muscles, you get bigger. If you use your muscles, the muscles get bigger, right? Because that's how your biology responds. Your biology, if you like stress your muscles, your biology responds by building more muscles. Because you know it only builds as much as you need. So if you exercise, you build more muscle. But these people don't have muscles. They have robot arms and robot legs. So lifting weights doesn't do anything. I mean, maybe they have like real abs or something, but only a small percentage of their bodies are still biological. So I don't think lifting weights actually does anything for any of these guys. Like you have like this improvised weight machine. The boxing ring or the fighting ring makes more sense, because fighting is not just exercising. Fighting is also practicing your martial arts, right? So the idea that they're practicing hand-to-hand combat, that makes sense, because they have like a paramilitary wing of Ark, like so they do want to learn how to fight. So this makes sense. The weightlifting doesn't really make any sense because they're all augmented. I don't know why they put that in. What do we have here? This appears to be a library. Alright, they are also exercising their minds. Very interesting actually, a library. I guess the implication is that Ark are also educated. Alright, going upstairs, we have weights. More weights, more weight machines. There's a lot of it too. I don't know if the game designers think about this. Why would they have weights if all the limbs are augmented? I don't think they thought this through. Right. In here we have showers. Alright, communal showers. Make of that what you will. The plumbing. The plumbing for the showers is fascinating. We have unnecessarily complicated plumbing. Like, what happened? Is the plumber insane? Yeah, no, we have a really skilled plumber. He really knows how to do plumbing, but he's also a little bit strange in the head. Like, everything works, but it's a little odd. He's a bit of a savant. He's a bit of a Geometry savant, our plumber. I don't know how else to explain that, but it's funny. It's very interesting. That's very interesting plumbing. I mean, they've got these fancy lights too. They've got some savants here. Lights, yes. Like, you know, I mean, these are not artists. I don't think they're artists. Like it's a political group with a paramilitary wing. They might have artists, I don't know, but these are like really fancy lights and those are very interesting plumbing. Alright, upstairs we have beds. Okay, this is the dormitory. Although, given how many ARC members there are, this is not enough beds. I guess they have other beds. But they definitely have more people than just this. And then we go back out. Alright, so there's the bright shining logo again. Let me just check this side. I don't think... Okay, this is just storage. Laundry? Linen closet? Okay, this is kind of laundry. What is this? Ah, the elevator. Let me go back. We don't want to go to the elevator. So coming back this way, this is more linens, more laundry. We have lockers, makeshift lockers, which is strange because you would think it's not that hard to buy lockers, right? But no, this is makeshift lockers. Every door is different. They have a carpenter. They have a carpenter who made custom lockers for the group. Custom lighting, custom plumbing, custom lockers. You can just buy lockers, can't you? Anyway, custom lockers, very interesting. And then laundry. Alright, good. At least they don't smell. You know what? It's not bad. They have a kitchen, they have a gym, they have like a game room, they have a dormitory, they have showers, and they have laundry. So they don't smell. That's good to know. Alright, let's get back down. So there's the dining area again. So this is like a communal living area for ARC members. Very cool. So that goes back into the gym. Down there is just storage. I don't know if I need to show you. Let's just take a look. Why not? Just in case you don't believe me. It's just storage. Alright. So there's the elevator. The elevator kind of joins the several levels. I'm not gonna take it. And there's some more areas up there, but they're not too important. There might be more residential stuff up here. Let me just double check. Wait. Yeah. So all of these are closed, but presumably there'll be more residential units for the ARC members to live in. And there's like spaces up there, but they're not important. Let's jump back. Okay, so through here we have a bit of a security room here, which is not too important. Although, wait a minute. Ah, hey, look, we have a medical area. Alright, a medical area. Hey, this is like fully featured. These ARC guys have all the facilities. What is this? What? More showers? Showers, lockers, medical facilities, security. I'm not sure why the medical area is behind the security desk, but that should probably be in its own space. Alright, and then we have a security checkpoint, very bright lights. A security checkpoint Oh, Talos Rucker, he's the leader of ARC. And then we come in here, and this is even further in. So there's layers of security, right? Like ARC, we've gone through 3 gateways already. Right, there's the first gate, and then you go into like a storage area, and then there was the service area, a second gate, and then we get into this living area, and then a third gate, and now we get into the political offices of ARC, I think. I think that's how we think of this. Because in this space, here, first of all, we have printing presses. So this is the propaganda factory of ARC, right? So we're like they're printing stuff. Oh, nice. They have plates there, and then they're gonna print a bunch of posters. So it's cool to see that they have like printing presses, and they're making posters, and they're drying posters here. What doesn't make sense is that they just have printing presses in the hallway. Because you come in there, like you... Printing presses, if you don't know, they're really loud. They smell because of the ink. And they vibrate because they like, you know, the rollers are like rolling and they're kind of printing, and then they're just kind of churning out these posters. So like, it's noisy, it smells, and it vibrates. So you really want your printing presses to be in a very stable, soundproof room. So you don't hear them, you don't smell them, it doesn't shake the floor. Putting them right in the middle of the hallway like this doesn't really make any sense. And also a serious safety hazard, because printing presses are also dangerous. Like all these rollers, if you don't put your hand in there, right? Don't put your hand in there. You're gonna lose your hand, lose your fingers. Yes, I mean none of this really makes any sense. To put all of this just in the hallway, this really should be in like a separate room. And then through here, what is this first of all? Not sure, but through here we have offices. Can't see them yet. Alright, let's look around. We're still dealing with the modules and the steel frame. You see the steel frame is going there and there, and then so the structure is still the same somehow. Again, I'm not sure if I buy this, because the way the modular frame works, like there's like a set pattern in the modules, and the way they arrange these spaces seems like it's they're not being very strict with how the structure joins up, is what I'm thinking. Anyways, it's just a video game. Down here we have, what do we have? Offices? What are these guys doing? I'm not sure, but they do have computers. Alright, computer workstations. And then, I don't know what this is. So this is like one of these modules, but it's not a residential module. Is this built in? This is not built in. So they've put in this equipment. This is audio mixing, right? Audio mixing or like broadcasting equipment. And then there's soundproof panels here. I don't know why they need it here. But I guess they're doing broadcasting work here. Or like they're doing audio work there. On this side we have security cameras, it looks like. But there's also this. I'm not sure what that means. Is this media? Or is this security? I don't know. Like the cameras, that looks like security footage, right? But this setup, it looks like it should be like media. They should be like monitoring global media, maybe. And then there's like a world map there. And there's some kind of operation going on, not sure. But it's all very high tech. Over on the other side, we have a recording studio. Look, there's a camera there. And there's a little setup where Talos Rucker can sit here and talk to you. Right? So they're doing media work. The lights, aren't those lights in the wrong direction? I think those lights are in the wrong direction, aren't they? Or maybe they're not. Isn't that too close? Isn't that good? Anyway, they're gonna record propaganda videos here. There's this, but they're not being used. So this is what I mean when I say a political office. So this is where they do propaganda work. They print posters, they record videos, they broadcast stuff. And then going upstairs, oh, like this thing. What is this thing? Like, what is this? What is this? It's a chandelier made of TVs? What is this? I don't know. A chandelier made of TVs. And then upstairs... Oh, what is that back there? Where should I go first? Okay, let's go this way. Offices. With timber furniture. So this is like an office module, right? We are still in one of these prefabricated modules. Is the timber furniture, I don't think it's built in. So the timber furniture is not built in. So I guess it's just like an empty, this is like an empty module. And you can fit it out with whatever furniture you want, I guess. Am I going this way? We're going, yes, we are. We're going this way. We have electronic equipment, and then on this side we have more offices, right? Paperwork, computers and desks, and even photocopiers. Photocopiers? Alright, so we have an office, basically. And then coming through this way... Oh, it's super bright. It's another gate or something. We have more offices. Not much to say, it's pretty standard. And then an elevator. We're still going up. I swear we're closer to the roof than that. I think that seems... if you think back, weren't we closer to the roof than this? Anyway, we're definitely going to the roof this time. I promise. So, what have we had so far in the Ark area? It's like the entrance, the living area, the political office, and now we get to this point. So here we need to load a save. Beyond this point is Talos Rucker's office. So the boss of Ark, this is his office. But the game has like a cutscene and then a big dialogue sequence and then a point of no return. So we're gonna get past all of that and load into the next part. Again, you'll notice that this whole time we just walked in one line. The entire Utulek level is just one line. You're just gonna go in one line and go all the way up. Like some parts it kind of opens up a little bit, but it's just the like corridor room. It's very simple circulation. Alright, so this is Talos Rucker's office. Talos Rucker is dead, by the way. Oh, let me just turn off the quest marker.
The strength of our
Oh, look at that!
convictions.
It's the sun!
We have been cast as the villain.
We've
once
made our
again.
way... I can't make him
Despite
shut
our
up.
denials,
Can't turn it
our
off.
protestations,
We've made
despite
our
our
way
dedication,
all the way to the roof.
peaceful advancement of our cause,
And Talos Rucker
despite the fact that some of our
has a
own
lot of
were killed in the
fancy
attack through
furniture
but fear
in his office,
has blinded our accusers. And although
but
I
also a lot of clutter, right? So he's too busy to enjoy the furniture.
I urge you
They say that
to become as blind
a busy office reflects a busy mind. So this guy is doing a lot of stuff.
to your homes, to intimidate, to accuse, perhaps worse.
The story is that Talos Rucker used to be a wealthy surgeon, I believe, or maybe something else. But he used to be wealthy, but he gave up
I urge you
his privileged life
more
to stand up for
violence
augmented
will
people.
only
That's the
escalate
story.
the situation. It will only serve to
So,
strengthen their justification.
I guess the fancy furniture reflects that past, and also how he's kind of ignored all of that privilege,
But only in
and now he's working really hard.
the augmented be accepted into
So this stuff, like
all of you.
the underlying architecture is still just the modules,
But as your
the
neighbor,
very
your friend,
functional
only solace
mechanical modules. But there's like a little arch there, like a little fancy arch there. I don't know why that is. It's a prefabricated unit, but slightly fancier. And I'm not sure I understand why. Because nothing else is fancy like that, right? And like there's an arch there too. Not sure what to make of it. But here we do get a view out over the Utulek, and we see those towers there. Alright, so this is interesting, because from here we can finally see that maybe the plan was for a much bigger city, because these towers, they're gonna be the beginning of the structure of the shelves that holds up the modules, right? So you're gonna have it looks like the plan was to have a much bigger city, and they really only built a small part of it. And down there, I don't know if you can tell. Can I pull my gun out? Those are like shacks. Those are small buildings. So the Utulek, the built part, is the part we're on. And then it looks like there's a whole bunch of foundations for more towers, but they never built them. And then inside that space, there's a whole lot of smaller makeshift structures. So this is like a slum city out there. Wild. So clearly, the plan was to have a much bigger city, a much bigger pile of prefabricated housing units that assembles into a city, but it's incomplete. They never finished it. And maybe the fact that it's incomplete, maybe that's why this place turned into a slum. Because there was supposed to be a lot more of it, and they just didn't build it, right? So you imagine, if this place was much bigger, there'll be less overcrowding, because like there'll be more housing units for the same number of people, right? And maybe there would have been other essential city districts, right? Like we have a lot of residential areas here. Maybe there was going to be like an industrial area, and like a commercial area, and maybe like a cultural recreational area. So maybe there are like other districts of the city that were just never built. And that's why the city is like missing so many essential services. Like maybe there would have been like a hospital unit in one place. You know what I mean? Like a university in one place. But they only built the residential part, and they just didn't bother building all the rest. And that's why the city is such a mess, right? So maybe the problem of this thing is just that it's unfinished. And given what we see here, it's clearly unfinished. And if we speculate a bit, maybe they built the residential area first, and then they moved all the orcs in here, and then they just cut the funding. Because the government was planning to screw the orcs in the first place, right? They just want to get rid of the orcs. So they said, oh, we're gonna build you this fancy city. Look, there's gonna be a residential area, and commercial, and industrial, and cultural, and universities, and hospitals, and we're gonna build everything for you. We started building it. You can start moving in, and then they moved them in, and then they didn't build the rest. That's the kind of thing a crappy government would do, I think. That's probably what happened. And this is the result. It's a disaster. But it's an intentional disaster. Somebody decided to screw all the orcs and just dump them here and ignore them and not build the rest of the city for them, right? Yeah, I was gonna say, imagine if this thing was complete. But maybe it would have been bad anyway, who knows, right? Like these kind of prefab units, and you just kind of expand that and have more of it. You know, like instinctively you want to say, well, if it's so bad now, surely more of it would just be more bad. But maybe not, you know? Maybe if the place wasn't overcrowded, it'd be okay, right? Maybe if there was like other districts, it'll be okay. Like, who knows what this place is missing? Like, is it missing a power plant? Is it missing a water supply? Is it missing like farm? Maybe they were like hydroponics towers. Is it missing a lot of food supply? Is it missing? Like, who knows what is missing, right? Maybe if everything was finished, it'll be fine. So like, you can't say, well, this part failed, and therefore all the other parts must fail as well. But maybe this part only failed because it was missing the other parts. Who knows, right? Who knows? Okay. For now, we're gonna have to stick to this part because it's all we have. Over here we have a little secret refuge. I think it's meant to be a safe room. And got a nice rug, nice chairs. No food or water though, so I don't know how much this is gonna help as a safe room. Okay, stepping out from Talos Rucker's office, and again the circulation makes no sense because in order to get from there to there, you have to go through the guy's office. There's no way around this. Everybody walking from one to the other is going through his office. That doesn't make any sense. The circulation makes zero sense, but it's basically just a single path to guide the player through the narrative. Like architecturally, in terms of planning, doesn't make any sense. Out here, we are on the rooftop, and we have vegetables. Wow! What these guys have done is they have put vegetable gardens on the roof, which makes a lot of sense, really, because one, there's a food shortage. Secondly, there's sunlight and rain up here, and so they take the rainwater, they take the sunlight, they grow food, and they feed people. They feed themselves, and then they feed people. Makes sense, right, in a place like this? Except, where did they get the soil from? It's probably poop. I don't know. I don't know if you know. I don't know if any of you are farmers. But it turns out there's a lot of poop involved in farming. Like, you take poop and you grow crops in poop. So this is probably poop. And so where does the soil come from? And the water, okay, so the water, let's say they collect rainwater, but where do they store the water? Water is, okay, there's water tanks up there. It's difficult though. Water is very heavy. Water is very heavy. And if you want a lot of it to irrigate crops like this, you're gonna need a lot of water. And I'm just not sure if the structure is strong enough to hold a lot of water. Maybe it is. So if the tower was meant to be taller, then the tower down here would be strong enough because it was always designed to hold a lot more weight. You see what I mean? If this was always... So the design of the tower, if it was only designed to be this tall and you put a lot of weight on top, it's not going to be strong enough to hold that weight. If it was designed to hold much more stuff above and that stuff is not there, that means this is designed to hold more weight. You see what I mean? So I guess it's possible. I guess it's possible that there's enough structure up here to hold all the water and the soil for you to grow crops. But what I'm trying to say is, like rooftop gardens, you have to design for a rooftop garden because you need extra structure to hold up the water and the soil and the plants. Right? It's not... Normally roofs are very light. Normally roofs it's just the roof, it's not holding anything up, and so roofs are often very light and not very strong. So yeah, so this, either you have to design it to hold a lot of weight, or this was never meant to be the roof. They just didn't finish it, and so it became the roof, and then it's strong enough. One thing or the other. It's probably not a good idea to put crops where you walk, because you're gonna trample the crops. So the layout of this is not ideal, but I guess the idea is they're just fitting in the crops wherever they can, right? It's not really designed to be a vegetable garden, so you just put it wherever. Over here we have a bit of a greenhouse. Not sure if this would get enough light, but there are extra lights to supplement. Artificial lights are never as good as natural light, by the way. So the best thing for your plants is just sunlight, because that's what they're designed for. Like photosynthesis is designed for sunlight. You can kind of grow crops in artificial light, but you have to have special lights, and it's not really that great. It's never as good as sunlight. And the water, like, it's never as good as rainwater for crops. No water is as good as rainwater, and no light is as good as sunlight. So if you want to grow crops, you really want sunlight and rain. I just saw cockroaches. Oh wow. Cool, there's bugs in here. I mean, there would be bugs because there's soil, right? And there's food. There's pipes up there and it's kind of spraying water down. Again, I don't know where the water is kept. I guess there's water tanks up in the ceiling. Alright, and that's pretty much the roof gardens. Unfortunately, as we get to this point, there's like not too much to say because it's like it's roof garden and then it's just roof gardens. There's no... like there's not even paths. So in a proper farm, okay, what am I trying to say? In a proper farm, you can tell by looking at it how the farming happens. For example, like if you have rows of crops, like you have a tractor, the tractor pulls a machine and the machine works the crops, and so then you'll have like, you know, parts where the tractor wheels go, and then like you have rows of crops where the machines are, and so like, you know, you can look at the field and you can see how the farming machine works the field. And like you can look at the roads, you can look at the fences, you can look at the buildings. Like you can like look at different parts of the farm and you can see how it works as a farm. Here, you look around, you can't really see how this works as a farm. I mean, you have planters, you have people, but it's not nearly as efficient as you would think. Because like, what is an efficient farm? Like you would have as much planting space as possible, as many plants growing as possible. So you would have like a narrow walkway for you to walk down, and then you would have like plants on either side. So like it would be laid out efficiently to get as many crops as possible into the space, because you don't have so much space, right? Like, why wouldn't you try to fit more crops in? And so you look at this and there's no sense in this. Like this is not efficient. So that's what I mean when you say, like, you look at this, you can't really see how it functions as a vegetable garden. It's just not... It's not designed that way. What it is designed for, it's designed for gameplay, by the way. If you play the game, there's like guards, and you have to sneak around, where you can kill them. You can either fight your way through, or you can sneak your way through. So all these, like all of this stuff, it's designed for sneaking, basically. So it's designed for gameplay, it's not really designed for actually growing vegetables. So you look at this, it looks like a vegetable garden superficially, but when you try to figure out, okay, how does this work as a vegetable garden, you realize that it doesn't actually work as a vegetable garden. It's just a gameplay space with vegetable garden theme. So that's what it is. So there's not too much to say about that architecturally, aside from the fact that, hey, we have a vegetable garden on the rooftop, and that's cool, right? Oh, here we can also see this structure as well. So again, we have the steel frame. There's more light now, you can see more clearly. Steel frame, and then these things slot into the steel frame like that, right? And then on top of that, they've built a lot of pipes. I guess, are they using these as water storage? The pipes just join into the units. I think they've filled the inside of these units with water. I'm not sure. Maybe they have. Because the pipes just go in, and then the pipes bring the water out, right? That'll be interesting, wouldn't it? Just fill your whole house. I mean, there's storage tanks up there, so I mean the water's probably there as well. There's also these solar panels, but I don't think the solar panels do anything. Because one, like, it doesn't get much light there. But secondly, there's so much power down below that these solar panels don't really add very much. They don't add anything at all, actually. Like, this structure would consume so much power that solar panels like that would do nothing. Like, they contribute nothing, or next to nothing, to the power usage of this building. Alright, we're gonna have to jump down. This elevator doesn't really go anywhere. And we're just gonna jump down. And the rest of the space is unremarkable. And like again, there's like these terraces, but then like how do you get up and down? There's no stairs. How do you like move this? Right, this, what is this? Fertilizer. How do you move this fertilizer up and down? Because there's no stairs or ramps or anything. I guess there's supposed to be an elevator, but the elevator doesn't join up here, right? That's the elevator. There's like a gap. So, none of this makes sense, but okay. Alright, don't worry about it. And then we come out, another storage area, and we're out the back. And here is where I stop. If I keep walking forward, there's a cutscene, and then we escape the Utulek by aircraft. So we're not gonna trigger the cutscene. We're just gonna end this here, right? So let me summarize. So that's the end of the Utulek tour, and we're not gonna go into the cutscene. So what do we see? What we saw was that the Utulek is an enormous slum. It's a massive slum. In fact, it's so massive that I start to doubt whether it's even possible. Because people do need food and water and healthcare and shelter. Like slums in the real world, yes, there are slums. But the slums are not so big that you can't go out and go to the doctor, if you know what I mean. Like, if you need something from outside the slum, you can get outside the slum to get it. Right? You live in the slum because you're poor. But often they would like leave the slum to work outside the slum because that's where the work opportunities are. So slums usually aren't the entire city. Here the slum is in the entire city, so where do people work? I mean, you want to work in the slum, but how much opportunity is there to make money in the slum? You see what I mean? So the economics of this I'm not sure about. And even just the logistics, like how do you get food in, how do you get electricity in, how do you get water in? Yeah, I'm not sure this place gets enough water. And if the slum, okay, if the slum cannot support this many people, like if it physically cannot support this many people, then people would leave, right? You're not just gonna die of thirst because there's not enough water. Like, what are you, stupid? You would leave. And so, like, the fact that the slum is supposedly stable means that it must get enough supplies to keep all these people alive, right? I'm not sure if the economics works out. Like in the real world, the economics wouldn't work out. Like Rome, ancient Rome, was a big city, and what they had to do was they had to build aqueducts to bring water in, because otherwise the people wouldn't have enough water. And Rome also brought in food from the other provinces, so they had like ships bringing food in from like Egypt and North Africa to feed the city, because like there's not enough farms around the city to feed the city. So you need like food and water, like stuff like that. And like the logistics of it, if you don't have food and water, you can't have that many people. They just die, right? Either they leave or they die. And so for this to exist, yeah, no, I don't. I wish the game explained it, but it doesn't seem like they thought about this, is what I'm saying. But that's okay, I'm not too concerned about it. I just think it would be more interesting if they did. The city, architecturally, is meant to be quickly built out of prefabricated units, right? So these units, they're not designed to be good, they're not designed to be sturdy, they're designed to be fast. They're designed so that you can assemble them on site very fast. They're designed so that you can build a lot of units in parallel off-site in factories, bring them all together, assemble them quickly. So this is like fast construction is what they were aiming for. But it has been left incomplete, clearly incomplete. You see all those towers out there, and they're just not finished. And it's also overcrowded, right? And it might be overcrowded because it's incomplete. So they didn't build all the rest of the city, so therefore people don't have enough space. It also lacked proper maintenance. Alright, so a lot of this stuff is getting a little bit worn, and it's not getting replaced. It's not getting fixed, it's not getting replaced. And as a consequence of all these things, the place has been heavily modified by the residents in order to try to make it livable, right? So there's a lot of cables, a lot of makeshift spaces, a lot of like makeshift construction, and then up here we have, well, we can't see it anymore. We have like rooftop gardens, which they were never designed to have rooftop gardens, but they needed food and water, so they kind of add rain capture and all that. So they modified the thing to try to make it livable, but it wasn't designed for that. And maybe it's incomplete, and therefore the residents had to kind of finish the city or like fill in the missing parts themselves. And all those reasons contributes to how the Utulek is today, right? It's like it was meant to be something much better, but it was unfinished, and people are making the best of what they have. Unusually, for a structure this large, it looks like the Utulek was designed to be able to be dismantled. Right, so none of this appears to be permanent. It looks like you can always take this stuff apart, take all the units out, and move it somewhere else. And that's very unusual for a building this size. Like, it might seem like a cool idea to make, oh, let's make like a kit set building that you can take it apart and move it around. Like, it sounds cool, but the issue is that a building that you can dismantle is actually a lot more expensive and a lot more complicated than a building that you just fix in place, because all the joints, all the bolts, like like everything else, everything has to be more complex. Like, so, you know, like a nail, you nail it in and you really shouldn't pull it out again. If you pull it out again, you can't put it back in the same way. So a nail is very simple. It's just like a piece of steel with a pointy end. Simple. So if you wanted something that you can take off and put back and take off and put back, you would need like a bolt. A bolt with a thread and then a nut, and then you have like two pieces, you kind of bolt it together. So a bolt, you can bolt together and you can unbolt, and you can rebolt and unbolt. But a bolt is much more complicated than a nail, right? A nail is just like a piece of steel. A bolt, it has a thread on it, and then you have a nut, and the nut has a thread on it. So you have like two pieces, both have a complex thread on it, and you have to turn it. And so the bolt, which you can disassemble, is much more complex than the nail, which you're not supposed to dismantle, right? And that's just like that applies to everything, right? Everything. It's like, so the steel, instead of just kind of having two pieces of steel and you just weld it, you have these complicated joints that you can kind of slot in and pull out, and slot in and pull out, and you have these clamps that you can clamp and unclamp, clamp and unclamp. So anything that you can take apart and put it back, that's more complicated than something that you just put it in once and just leave it there. And so this, the whole Utulek thing, it's way more complex than it really needs to be. Like, so in exchange for being able to build all the units in parallel and assemble it really fast, in exchange for that, they have to make it a lot more complex. And in the real world, you just wouldn't do this, right? In the real world, you just build a permanent skyscraper, and if you need to change it, just demolish the whole thing and just build a whole new skyscraper. That's what we do in real life, and that's actually cheaper than building a skyscraper out of components that you can take apart and put together, take apart and put together. So just demolishing the whole thing and rebuilding is cheaper than this other stuff. Like this stuff is more expensive than just demolishing the whole thing. So that's why we don't do this in the real world, because it's just not economical. It doesn't actually make sense. And as I said, there's also other problems like having little gaps like this, having gaps between the modules. You're gonna have rats in there, you're gonna have rubbish in there, you're gonna have dead cats in there. It's gonna be a problem. Right, in proper buildings, you just seal everything off. Like, it's either outdoors or indoors, and there's nothing else. Like, there's no tiny little gaps where things can get stuck. Or you try not to. Sometimes there are, and it's always gonna be a problem. You try not to have little gaps like that, as few as possible. So the Utulek, this whole thing, it's a very interesting idea, and in architecture school, like sometimes the students would come up with ideas like this. Oh, what if we could blah, blah. But like in the real world, it's just not practical, and so you just don't do it in the real world, except at very small scales, right? So you can imagine like one small house that is prefabricated and you put on site and you live in it. So like maybe like a small house, maybe like like a good use of prefabricated structures like this is emergency shelter after a disaster. So if there's like a volcano eruption or an earthquake or whatever, and everybody's homeless, and you need to like get homes for people really quickly, you might have these prefabricated units prepared for a disaster. You kind of ship them on site, you put them down, and people have shelter right away. But then they'll be temporary, right? You don't expect people to live in those things forever. They're temporary until you can build the housing. And so like prefab units like this, they do have a use, and there are ways to make it work. I mean, you can also make it so that you prefab the units, but you don't. It's not temporary. It's not like it's not something you can dismantle. You actually then fix it on site and you make it permanent. You can do that too. So there are ways to do this without the downsides. Here they didn't do that. Here they did something really ambitious, and also actually quite impractical in the real world. And then in the story, there's also the fact that they just left it unfinished. They just built it halfway, and then they just dropped it and then walked away from it. And no matter what construction project you have, if you do that, it's gonna fail. If you just don't finish the building, it's not gonna work. So it's unfortunate that it turned out like this. What I want to say is, don't think that it's bad just because it's prefabricated. Like, don't think this is bad just because of the way it's designed. This idea, it's a fine idea that has its place. Just not like this, and not the way it's treated, right? Okay. So that's the Utulek. Kind of interesting. Interesting in the sense that you're not gonna see this in the real world. So it's kind of interesting to explore this in fiction, and kind of think about what would happen if you try to build it like this. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Next up, we're going to GAM. GAM, or the Geological Alpine Research Mega Complex. GAM, in the Swiss Alps. Alright, I'll see you there.